Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Maine SBDC webinar, Government Contracting and Selling to the State of Maine. My name is Kelsey Reardon, and I'm with the Maine Small Business Development Center's no-cost business advising program. We're funded by the SBA, and so we're here to help small businesses with whatever may be ailing them. We highly recommend that you visit our website, which I will drop in the chat shortly, and request an advising session if you have any specific questions about your business. The best way to gather resources from us is a one-on-one advising session with one of our certified business advisors. We have centers all across the state, although like most people, we are working remotely. And so all of our meetings are via Zoom, which actually is helping with accessibility. So once you submit your request for advising, we can put you in touch with either the best advisor for your particular industry or the advisor that's located closest to you, depending on your needs. Today, we have a very special presentation by our friends from PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. I had to write that down, so I knew I wouldn't mess it up. We are joined by the Maine State Director of PTAC, Ken Blosh, who will be giving an introduction to federal contracting and how to get started selling to the state of Maine. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Please stay muted throughout the entire presentation, but feel free to submit any questions or comments along the way in the chat. Also, introduce yourself. Let us know where you're located in the state, maybe what industry you're in. If you'd like to share a link to your business, that would be great. Also, have you done any government contracting before? If so, let us know. If not, what are you hoping to sell? What services are you hoping to provide? Let us know so that we have an idea of what everybody's thinking today. Otherwise,
My apologies. I'm the featured speaker and I'm late, so.
That's okay. We were just getting through the introduction. So other than the follow-up email that you will receive from me with the recording of today's session and the slides and maybe any links to any resources we referenced today, you'll be hearing from me one more time, and we will have time for a Q&A at the end. But otherwise, I am all set to pass it over to Ken.
Thank you, Kelsey. World of government contracting is a constantly changing dynamic environment. I just proved because I couldn't even plan to get here on time. So apologies for that. Let me get my screen up. I'm gonna give you a little bit of background on who Maine PTAC is, first of all. Then we'll talk about basics on federal contracting and some basics on the state government contracting. There's a lot in this presentation. There's almost 60 slides. I'm not going to dwell on every one. It would take us days to go through that in detail, but you will get a copy of the slides, and obviously feel free to reach out to any member of the PTAC, myself or any member of the PTAC team afterwards, and we can walk you through it. Everybody see that okay?
Looks great. Okay.
Let me move you folks down here. This is what we're going to do today. I'm Ken Block. I'm the director of Maine PTAC. This is most of the team. I've had a couple of changes in the meantime. There is a team with a slide with the team on it coming up. What we're going to cover today: who Maine PTAC is, some procurement basics on the federal and the state, and finally how we can help. Well, first of all, what's PTAC? It stands for Procurement Technical Assistance Center. We're a national program authorized by Congress in 1985. Largely put in place because not enough of the Defense Department budget was going to small businesses. That was the original reason they set us up. Congress put the program under the Department of Defense and funds it annually through the defense budget. And basically, our mission is to help everyone, any size business with any kind of government contracting. Currently, there's about 96 PTACs in all 50 states and several territories. If you ever want to work in the U.S. Virgin Islands. There's a PTAC down there you can go hired for. Don't tell my guys on the call for that. I don't want to lose anybody, but it is a possibility. There's also things as far away as Guam and the Northern Marianas if you like the Pacific. What do we do? Well, officially, we're a nationwide network of dedicated procurement professionals. All that really boils down to is we help businesses find, win, and perform on government contracts, federal, state, and local. Really simple. If you're a small business and you want to get into the government market and you don't have the expertise, and no one has expertise if you're a small business, we're the ones that help you with that stuff. We're a program of Eastern Maine Development Corporation. We're a statewide program. There's 7 counselors in those particular territories that are willing to help. And we help businesses do business with governments at all levels. So stepping through the basics of federal procurement. What do the feds buy? Literally everything. They're the world's largest buyer of goods and services. Almost $140 billion, it's with a B, goes to small businesses every single year. They're great customers to have because they buy frequently, they buy repeat stuff, and they're required by law to help small businesses. So how does the government actually buy things? Well, here's the really, really oversimplified process. This goes well beyond even the I'm a bill on Capitol Hill song. Basically, the agencies identify the needs for things. They then submit those to Congress, who develops direction and funding and budgets the programs. The agencies then issue requests for the items they need. They put out solicitations, RFPs, RFQs, different things like that. Companies make offers against them, and usually in some kind of competition. You bid against the solicitation. The winning companies deliver items to the government and they get paid. That's the really 60,000-foot view of the process. Now, there's a formal process that governs most of this. Items steps 3 through 5 are implemented through something called the FAR. Okay, what's the FAR? It's the Federal Acquisition Regulations. It's a set of standardized rules and procedures to govern how the federal government buys things, basically. It was created in 1974 to standardize things, and it's like 2,000 pages long right now, although nobody prints it out anymore. And it's complicated because they tried to take all the different, before 1974, nobody bought things the same way. The Defense Department bought things differently from the Agriculture Department, different rules, different processes. When they created the standardized way, they shoved all that together and they tried to make ways common. So it's got a lot of different contract clauses for every possible situation. On top of it, that wasn't enough. So several agencies like the Defense Department have supplements to it called the DFAR that are ways over and above. So you can see that this is complex within complex within complex. The nice part is you don't have to know that. We can help you with that. But there's a lot of rules in all of this. A little bit of background on contract relationships, because this comes up frequently in contracting. There's something called a prime contractor. What that really means is the prime contractor has the relationship directly with the government. They're responsible for the entire contract, and they are the ones that hire subcontractors to support them. It's important to know the difference because a subcontractor has a relationship with a prime contractor, not the government. So if you wind up as a subcontractor, for example, and you have a problem with the prime, you can't talk to the government about it. You have to talk to the prime about it because your relationship is with them, their relationship is with the government. So understand those terms right off the bat: prime contractor, subcontractor, and a vendor. A vendor is somebody who just provides something. Remember we talked about the feds have an obligation to support small businesses? Well, this is actually some specialized small business programs they do. Federal law requires that currently 23% of all federal dollars go to small businesses. That's a lot of money when you figure the federal budget, the procurement budget is billions and billions of dollars. Now within that 23%, they have some subcategories. A woman-owned small business is supposed to get 5%. A category called SDB, small disadvantaged businesses, is not getting another 5%. The Hubzone program, another 3%. And finally, service disabled veteran owned small businesses, or SDVOSB, is 3%. By the way, if you haven't picked up on the trend, there are 1,001 acronyms here. Before I go on, I want to give you my favorite acronym story ever. I was once building radars in Iceland on a joint U.S. Defense or U.S. Air Force and NATO project. The Navy has a group responsible for facilities called Naval Facilities Engineering Command, or NAVFAC-ENGCOM was the way the Navy acronym is. The unit in Iceland was under the NATO commander, Supreme Allied Commander Atlantic Forces, or SACLAN. So the little 20-person unit in a Navy unit in Iceland that I was working with to build these facilities, their acronym was SACLAN NAVFAC-ENGCOM. True stuff. So you need to learn that stuff, and honestly, if you don't, we're happy to help you. Okay, so about these percentages are goals, but the nice part is the agencies compete these goals, so they actually do achieve them, or actually overachieve them most of the time. One more thing for on contract background here, there are some particular thresholds. Anything over $250,000 is what they call large formal competition. It's open for everybody. There's a whole process with sealed bids and things like that. Below that, everything below $250,000 is supposed to be reserved for small businesses. And there's different categories. Up to $10,000, a government buyer with a credit card can just purchase from you, period. They don't need to do a solicitation. They don't need to run any competition. If you have, coffee cups that you're selling at $1 a piece, they can buy 1,000 of them. It's really easy. They don't need to go through any competition. The trick to that is you have to find out who the buyers are and make your products known to them, because if they don't, they have no way of finding it. Anywhere from 10 to 25,000 is what they call limited competition. The buyer just has to get 3 bids. Doesn't have to be advertised. It could be any 3 bids. It is small business only, but it does mean that, again, that if the buyer knows who you are, you have a chance of getting a bid. If they don't know who you are, you will never get one of these. Finally, most of the federal procurements wind up in the category of $25,000 to $250,000. They're all advertised in an electronic system called beta.sam.gov. There's a few that aren't, but almost all of them are. They run a very simplified competition. You basically submit a proposal and a price, and there's different details on that. But it's not the full-blown sealed price and sealed technical thing that you get over $250,000. It's a much simpler process. And again, that's for small businesses only. So you're interested in government market. Here's what things do you need to consider. First of all, should the federal government be in your business plan? Why should they buy from you? Does the government already buy what you sell? If so, how do they buy it? Are you willing and able to market yourself? This is a place where a lot of people stumble. They don't realize you don't have a problem. You have to, much like a commercial client, you need to build relationships with the government. And if you're willing to put the time and effort in to market yourself and build those relationships, you'll be successful. If you can't, you have a harder time. You have other good commercial customers. Why is this important? Well, but the government's just like you and I. If I want to get my roof repaired, I'm not going to go to the guy who just opened up last week as a roofer. I want a roofer who's got some past performance credentials, who's bonded, who's got some experience. It's basically a low risk thing for me to do. Government's pretty much exactly the same way. They just buy it differently. You're reasonably tech savvy. This is actually important because more and more companies are doing, well, first of all, the feds aren't doing anything with paper contracts anymore. It's all electronic. It's either credit card or electronic. So you have to be able to have that ability to do things like that. Most important thing though, why should the government buy from you? This is a really important thing because there's other marketing materials you'll need. This idea of why me really needs to be in everything you say and do if you're going to do. Well, and this is not just the federal market. This is any government marketing. It really applies to your commercial customers too. What makes you unique? Why should they spend their dollars with you? But this is the most important part of it, and you need to really be able to boil this down to 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, so now you've gone through the process. And you still really want to do this. So what do you need to do? Well, there's according to Ken, there are 4 phases to this. There's the pre-bid stuff. There's the marketing and looking for opportunities. There's the bidding piece, and then there's the contract piece, or the I won, now what do I do phase. For registrations, and the first part of this pre-bid is actually registering with the federal government. Before you can even bid on a federal job or a federal grant for that matter, you have to register. So what does that mean? You need to obtain a DUNS number. It's a unique number from Dun & Bradstreet. You then use that and a taxpayer ID number to register in a system called sam.gov and obtain a CAGE code, a contractor and government entity code. And then you need to finally go through and update your SAM. Your SAM entry will actually give you a low-level profile in a system called Dynamic Small Business Search, or DSBS. But you actually want to go through and update that profile, because that DSBS is the way that the federal government buyers actually can search for you. So you can see, long before you're ever looking at solicitations, you've got some work to do. All of this stuff is free. It's not easy to do. There are companies out there who want to charge you a lot of money to do this stuff. We do it for free. We will help you with every step of this as many times as you need it. The one wonderful thing about PTAC, and I can't say this enough, we're a federal program, and we use local dollars and state money to leverage federal dollars. So everything, you've already paid for our services with taxes. Whatever we do for you is free. A couple of times, if we run a big event, like we run a 2 or 3 day event in a hotel with food and training, we have to charge a minimal cost for that. But otherwise, you can use this for one thing or 10,000 things, and it costs exactly the same, $0. All right, so into the marketing phase. You're registered now. You need to research the competition, look for opportunities, prepare your marketing effort. And this is where I'm going to start moving through things really quickly. Everything in the federal government, I said, is almost everything is announced on beta.sam.gov. To make it more complicated, beta.sam.gov at some point is going to transition to sam.gov. And there's all kinds of stuff in there. There's a federal procurement data system where you would use that to research past performance. You would find solicitations on beta.sam.gov. You would also find solicitations on other websites beyond beta.sam.gov. You could spend a lot of time doing this, and it's not easy. We actually run a piece of software called a bid match. Basically what we do in a nutshell is we build a profile for your company, who you are, what you want to do, where you want to sell, what you sell, various keywords and things like that. The software then searches beta.sam.gov and lots of other federal, even some international sites and state and other sites. And if it finds a match to your keywords, it sends it to you on a web page. It's a really good way of getting opportunities without spending hours yourself doing it. The nice part is when you get those, even if you don't understand them, you just reach out to us and we can help you figure out whether they make sense for you and how to proceed on it. So one of the things you do need to market yourself anyway, and this is a good tool for both government and commercial work. You want to have a capability statement. A capability statement is often called a resume for your business. It really is. It's a one-pager. You want it to something that identifies your strengths, some of your highlights, your company strengths, and provides essential information. In the traditional meeting environment, think of this as you sit down for a meeting with somebody, and you give them your business card and you give them your capability statement, and the capability statement becomes your leave behind. It's something they can scan quickly to get a good idea of who you are and why they want to do it. They're relatively simple to put together, but there's an art to it. So again, you want help. You want some help from us. This is another good example of how you would tailor it, though. For example, we have a landscaping customer in Southern Maine that does both government and commercial work, residential specifically. And for the residential customers, they're looking at things like gardens and other things like that are very specific to homeowner stuff. On their commercial stuff, the government stuff, they are now looking at things like paving and curbsiding, stuff like that. Residential people are not interested in that. So it's a totally different set of tools, totally different set of skills. And you have multiples of these. And again, we can help you with that. The last part of marketing yourself is what we've traditionally called an elevator pitch or elevator speech, depending on who you are. Basically, it's supposed to be a simple way for you to describe who you are, what your company does, something that you can describe to your mother in the way it takes to ride up an elevator. That's where the actual original description comes from. I know with my mother, I would have to make it really simple because I'd have the same question every 10 minutes about what I did, or I may still doing that. But so that's but basically, it's really got a few components to it. Who you are, what you do, what you've done, YU, which is one of them. Again, that's that YU from before. And finally, the part, and everybody does that. You meet somebody, you talk about who you are, and then that's kind of where it ends. Everybody forgets the last part. The last part's called a call for action. Well, you want to get something out of this. When you're talking to somebody, you want a meeting, you want a card, you want to make up a call, you want something out of it. You always have to have that as the closing part of your thing. And again, there's a structure for this. It's really easy. We can even help you practice it. And this is, again, another one where you may have multiples of these. Okay, so moving on to the state of Maine. We're doing pretty good on time, actually, so I won't race through as much as I was in the early ones here. We're going to cover in this piece products and services purchased by the state of Maine, the division of some of the M&A agencies that buy and stuff, and again, how PTAC can help. So here's the basic stuff that Maine buys. Again, everything. Not as much as the feds. Oops, let me go back here. They buy more than $140 million in commodities and 800 in services. Important difference. Commodities are things. The coffee cup that I mentioned earlier, that's a commodity. The landscaping, that's a service. They buy them differently, so they are important to remember that. But again, they buy in large and small quantities, and they're required to advertise almost everything they do. They do their procurement out of 3 primary locations: the DAFs, or the Division of Procurement Services, the Financial Services, where the name used to come from, Department of Transportation, and the Planning, Design, and Construction Division from DAFs. We'll take them one at a time here. The basic procurement services. Established in 1931, they're required by Maine statute to do all the purchasing of commodities and a lot of other things. The state of Maine has 350 units that buy things, and it's really important to not have them all do it their own way. Much like the argument for the FAR earlier, they standardize things through DPS. You have to register. Oh, again, here's the registration that we talked about earlier. You now have a system to register with the state of Maine called Advantage Me, or we're just vendor self-service. VSS is a much easier way to describe it. It's an electronic web system, went live in 2001, single portal entry, so you can actually put in, register yourself as a vendor, search for opportunities, and respond to them in a long time. Commodities only on here. A couple of important points on this. When you get to this welcome page, I don't know if you can see my pointer here. There is a quick start guide right here. You definitely don't read that, and you register through this link over here. I don't know who designed this web interface, but it's terrible. However, and it's clunky, but it does work. So, you know, bear a little bit of patience with that stuff. We can help, again, we can help you step through some of this stuff too. Okay, I mentioned this difference between commodities. All commodity purchases by the state of Maine are posted on VSS. Doesn't matter who's buying them, with a couple of exceptions. They're all posted there. If it's greater than $50,000, it's going to be they advertise it, and you have to actually submit a bid. Between 5,000 and 50,000, they're going to ask for quotes. They have to have at least 3 bids. Again, there's that same principle of lower bids with 3 bids. Open market limit items under 5,000, they can just pretty much do it. So you see the similar pattern here to the credit card thing from before. The feds can use a credit card under 10,000 to buy it. The buyers under 5,000 can buy things directly. Then the next tier is at 5 to 50,000, where they need to get 3 bids. Like the federal side, they need to get 3 bids, and above that, they need to get a formal process going. What the last 2 items, the 5,000 and under 5,000, really say, much like the federal scenario, is you want to build relationships. The nice part about the state of Maine is there aren't 4,000 federal agents. There aren't 4,000 agencies buying things. If you're selling commodities, DPS has about 11 buyers that all have certain categories of stuff they buy. One guy buys snowmobile, somebody else buys paper, and then those names are available, and you can actually talk with them long before you have to bid anything. So you can let them know who you are. That gives you an opportunity to get the smaller stuff. Quite frankly, for most companies, a $40,000 sale is a pretty good sale. So it's smaller for this, but it's still pretty big for most Maine companies. Okay, services are handled a little bit differently. Services are not posted on VSS. Services are posted on a different part of the DPS website. They again, under 10,000, they need to get three quotes. Low bidder financially always gets the award on this with possible exceptions. Anything over $10,000, they have to advertise. They use a formal RFP process, a solicitation. They post it on their on that particular part of the website. They also, and this is a holdover to the old days, everything had to be notified in the newspaper. They publish it for 3 days in the Kennebec Journal in Augusta, which doesn't help you if you don't get the Kennebec Journal. But that's how they're, but it's always on the website. Okay, couple of bits, we talked about the buyer. You can actually, this is where you actually want to reach out to the buyers. You can send them as much information as you build that relationship, reach out to them, talk about who you are, what you do, what you sell, why you'd be good for the state of Maine. And send them some materials as part of that conversation. They actually like to get that stuff. I mean, they don't want to get a ton of stuff, so don't send them like your 400-page catalog. But send them a capability statement, send them a few other bits and pieces, things that might help them understand how valuable you are. Okay, Maine DOT. Maine DOT is not surprisingly the more complicated way to procure things. There's a mix of Maine DOT uses a mix of federal and state dollars to buy things. So they have a blend between the federal procurement rules and their own procurement rules. You have to be registered in VSS to even do business with Maine DOT, but that's just registering in VSS. In many cases, they actually want you to go through pre-qual applications. This is all the safety and civil stuff that you have to put up front. Bids, anybody can bid. Whether you've done pre-qual or not, anybody can bid. But if they give you the award, you have to then satisfy all that same pre-qual stuff as if you had done it ahead of time. They don't require everything to be pre-qualified, but there are some things, and there's bridge construction, highway construction, paving, things like that. You want to make sure these are people that you really need to know can do the work. They're pretty important projects. Now, having said that, there are some exceptions to pre-qualification. This is one of those wonderful instances where it says everybody's required to pre-qual except where they're not. That's literally what this rule is. They don't require pre-qual for contracts for contract under $300,000, unless there are some other circumstances at play. If you're picking up on the inconsistency here, you're pretty sharp. There aren't a lot of rules on this apparently. I mean, there are rules, but there's a million exceptions. So we'll help you work through that. Some that typically don't require pre-qual are things like bridge painting, crack sealing, demolition. They don't require pre-qual for that. Now, Maine DOT are all on advertised on their own website, Maine Gov't Contractor right up there. Current advertised projects and recently awarded projects are there. If they're buying commodities, again, they'll be in VSS. The nice part about having the recently awarded projects out there, I mean, let's say I'm a small business and I do some paving. I'm not going to bid on a Route 95 construction project. I'm too small for that. The Chin Bros, the other people like that are going to win those projects. But maybe I can do a few miles of stuff for them. Well, I'm not going to bid on the main project, which is advertised on the Maine DOT website, but I can see who's bidding, and I can reach out to them when they're bidding. And then if they win it, then I can find out who won and then reach out to them to try to get some subcontract work. So it's all kind of a general strategy for all of those things. Remember I said that the federal government does everything electronically? Well, Maine DOT does things a little differently. They do electronic bids. They also do traditional paper bids. You have to purchase a bid book or download it and then hand deliver them to Augusta before the due date. I don't recommend that at all anymore. I mean, if that's the only way you can do it, that's fine. But it gives DOT an extra layer of complication. And it also means something could be, when they transfer it from the paper bid to the electronic transfer system, they could make a mistake in something you do. So I always recommend going the electronic bid on that. They do have a very old tradition. They do a public bid opening every Wednesday at 11 a.m. They open all the bids that are due for that week, and they even live stream it. You can call in or watch it, and right there at that website. Then again, the nice thing, if you're interested in marketing yourself to people, this public bid opening is actually an interesting way to market yourself. We suggest that people, if you're a smaller company looking to make connections in some of these bigger companies who are bidding, you can see who's on the bid list for that week, who's going to be at the bid opening. Go down to it, bring your capability statement, bring some business cards, shake some hands, make some connections. You may never get a piece of work out of it for that day, but it's an opportunity to get some face time with people who are in the business, the big time stuff. Okay, a couple more. Bureau of General Services, Planning, Design, and Construction coming up. So Planning, Design, and Construction, they do all the capital improvement planning and projects. So this is basically the architects and engineers and construction management stuff for state public improvements, like various state buildings, and they also extend their services out into public school projects. So if a school in a given city or town wants to put up a new school or do some renovation, they would use the design and construction facilities of the PDCD to actually either to develop the architect and engineering drawings to do it, or even manage the construction. Here's what they do. Again, they have two ways to procure things. For big solicitations, they do a formal process. You submit. There's a screening interview. You negotiate the rate, and they get an award and follow on it. For projects that are less than $25,000, they have a pre-qualified list, and these pop up different times during the year for a whole bunch of specialty categories like architecture or fire escape system design. Basically, you get yourself on these pre-qualified lists, and when the buyers are looking for a job to do that's under $25,000, they'll reach out to one or two or three people on that list, and just give them an award, or at least have a small competition between them. They're not required to have any kind of formal competition, but it does, again, it behooves you to now do some marketing and find out who these people are. Construction services, new constructions or renovations, and this is again a formal bid process for that. These bids always go to the lowest dollar value. I mean, you hear a lot in federal and state procurement about best value. Best value is a very subjective thing. Really, when it comes down to two firms that are doing something really well, if one has a substantially lower price, or even just a lower price than the other, cost becomes a significant, if not the most significant, element. In some cases like this, the Bureau of Construction Services, cost is absolutely the primary factor. Talked about some of the stuff they do. They do pre-qual, they do invitation for bids. But by the way, what you'll hear different terms here. You'll see things like RFQ, request for, in this case, request for qualifications. RFQ is typically used as request for quotes. You'll also see things like RFPs. And an RFP, a request for proposal, and an RFQ differ slightly. The terms are often used interchangeably incorrectly. In the correct definition, an RFQ, or a request for quote, is something where you know very well what it is. You're looking for a specific item or specific product. You've defined exactly how many of them you need. Like I need 50 coffee cups of this type. I would submit a request for quote. They put out a request for quote asking you to bid on delivery of the 50 at X number price. Request for proposal is typically put out when something's much more complex and they can't define everything very well, or when they need services. Because again, if you're buying landscaping services, you're not going to actually specify, I need you to use 10 shovelfuls of dirt to move that. You want to have, in this case, you're going to be specifying that you want this thing done. You want this dirt moved. So you need a proposal that's a little more than just a price and a date. You need a proposal to say how they're going to do it. And all of those are the links at the bottom for all the stuff for the PDCD, excuse me. Okay. Over and above that, as if it wasn't more complicated, there are lots of other places in the state of Maine that procure services and goods outside of the Bureau of Purchases. And that's because they're set up, they're quasi-public private or they're private, and these are just a few. Okay, so going through this stuff, and you're all probably going, that's crazy. How could I possibly know that stuff? Well, that's what we're here for. What do Maine PTAC do? The bulk of what we do is one-on-one business counseling and on government contracting. We sit down with you, we find out who you are, what you want to do, how you want to sell, where you want to go, and we help you develop a roadmap for that. And then we work with you as much as you need. If some people just need us to help with their SAM registration, for example, or VSS. Some people like us to review proposals. Some people like us to help manage contracts. We do all of that. And then we also do something called SBAR. SBAR is Small Business Innovative Research. It's a whole bunch of federal R&D programs that are actually research grants. We can support all the materials on that. We actually work with MTI, who actually has a special technical team to actually help with the writing of those particular proposals. We do a lot of training workshops. We're going to do about 68 this year, I think. Everything now is webinars. I mean, we haven't done an in-person workshop since last winter. But they're all like this. We put a presentation together and we ask and do questions and different topics. Everything's available on our main PTAC website under the events tab. We do matchmaking and networking events. In the non-COVID world, we've done small business matchmaking events every couple of years. We do a big New England one every couple of years. I'm currently looking at ways we can do this virtually, and we'll keep you posted on that because that's pretty exciting if we can do that virtually. I mentioned before, our taxes paid for everything, so everything we do is no cost to our clients. So tying some of that stuff back into the phases we mentioned earlier, in the pre-bid prep phase, we'll help you with registration assistance. So that's everything from getting a DUNS number to registering at SAM, working through your DSBS, registering in VSS if you're looking at Maine stuff, and getting some of those various certifications for the small business categories. Woman-owned small business, savers, disabled, veteran, they all have special approval processes to get certified by the government for that. That's just Hubzone. In the opportunity search and marketing, I mentioned that we have the bid match software that'll help with that. We do put on matchmaking events. We do a lot of work with capability statements and elevator pitches. Capability statements are a really nice tool. We help you with that. We can do the market research for you too on a lot of things. In the bid phase, we'll help you break down the government solicitations, explain what it is, what's required, what you need to do. We'll even help you work through your bid documents. I mean, Dana Delano, one of my staffers, had a client who had a bid due at the last minute, and he spent 6 hours with them working on their bid to get it together. We will do that kind of thing for you. After you've won a contract, especially at the federal level, you have another set of problems. You have to properly bill. You have to deliver material. In some cases, you have to package it a certain way. You may have inspection and quality assurance clauses. And none of those are things that normal people understand. It's all a special way to do it for the government, especially even things like labeling are special. So we have expertise on that. Myself, I was in industry for decades. I mean, there's almost nothing I haven't shipped at one point or another. You have to bill electronically. There's a system called WAF, Wide Area Workflow, another acronym, where you do electronic billing for the government. There's like 12 different invoices alone that you could submit on that. We'll help you with that stuff too. Here's the team, at least the full-timers. We get some part-time support on top of that. When you get this, everybody's territory has a color match. For example, Katie Bragg is our counselor for what we call our Down East territory, which is Washington County. So her color match is there. The three of us up top, obviously myself, Mike Ludwig's a statewide business development guy. And then Preston Thomas is the newest addition to the team. He's an at-large counselor responsible for native businesses. Everybody else has a specific geographical territory. Upcoming webinars, we have actually a webinar next week on our bid match, on how to understand it, how to set it up. That's on the 25th from 10 to 11. We have a lot more events coming up in March and April on our event side. Everything, all of those are free. There's a simple registration for it, and then we'll get you on board, and we'll get to the slides afterwards too. And then we promote ourselves on a lot of social media sites. This is the events page. And that's it for the formal presentation. We did about 35 minutes. I'm sure you're all exhausted by the pace, but I know I am.
That was great. I know I was going to say, I think you're probably the most tired of us all. That is the joy of it being recorded, is we will get to go backwards and double check some of that information later. So feel free to submit any questions that you have in the chat. It looks like we have a couple in from Susan that might need a little bit of clarification. So Susan, if you are still in the call, feel free to unmute yourself and actually.
I am here.
Great.
Cool.
Oh, we lost you. You were unmuted for a second.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
So, excuse me, I think the two questions that I asked, one was about the percentage in regards to how much the state was getting and blah, blah, blah. I can't remember because that was a little while.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm looking at the chat now. I see what you're saying. First one, what does the rest of the percentage come from the SBA program? Yeah. Basically that means it doesn't have to be reserved for small businesses. It can go to large businesses. And that's I mean, it's what they call full and open competition. A small business could still win it if it's a full and open competition, but it's not guaranteed for small business. The 23% is the targets to guarantee for small businesses.
It is, okay, yeah. And my other quick question was just, how does the state know the approximate value of if the bid is going to be, $10,000 or under, and basically if it's going to be like 9,000, how do they know whether they need to put the bid out there for a bid, or, oh, well, geez, I think so-and-so can do it for this price?
Yeah, they have an internal government estimate that they used. The feds in the state all use the same kind of thing. They have the state uses it to determine, well, they all use it to determine how to publicize it. They have their own internal pricing structure that say, this costs this much, this costs this much. They put an estimate against it. But they don't know what it's going to be until they actually get the bids in. So.
Right. Right, understand. So basically, one's best course is to do a lot of networking prior to. Okay, yeah.
It's really not that different from commercial customers. I mean, if you're trying to sell to a commercial customer, you want to network, you want to build a relationship with them. The government contracting is really the same way, except that the rules of buying it are different. That's it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Awesome. Peter is wondering, what are the criteria to be considered a small business?
Okay, there's a system called NAICS, the North American Industrial Classification System. It has a series of 2 to 6 digit codes. The 6-digit codes break down a lot of detail, and they're assigned as a code that's applicable to every business in the country. You decide which ones apply to you. But the Small Business Administration, SBA, sets a size standard to each NAICS code. And by that it means, and they're either in terms of annual sales or number of employees. So for example, I'm just making up a number. Let's say it's 366127 is your NAICS code, because it best defines what you do. There's a published edition of what the value of that is. You then look it up and you say, okay, for that particular one, the size standard is 500 employees. I have 10 employees. I'm less than 500. I'm small. It's literally that simple.
So is there a dollar amount that is also attached to that number of employees, or it could be both? And
no, it's either or.
It's either. Okay, thanks.
Either or. Yep.
Great. Any other questions? We've got one more. Would you help us understand some of your certification programs from WOB, VOB, SDVOB, and what do counselors need to know about this process for our clients?
I assume Holly is an SBDC?
Holly is not not with SBDC.
I'm trying to understand the last part of this. What the counselors need to know about this process.
She's with the Veteran Business Outreach Center, actually.
Ah, okay. Okay. VBOC. We like VBOCs.
Mm-hmm. We do.
Well, there's different processes for different ones. Women-owned small business has a certain set of steps to go through. You need to certify that the woman makes the majority of decisions, owns 51%, various things like that. A whole different set of steps for service-disabled veteran businesses, and that one actually is in flux right now because there were two different SDVOSB programs. There was one for the VA and one for the rest of the world, and those are being merged together. The Hubzone program is both geographical and employee based. So you have to have a location in you have to have a home office in a certain location. You know, X number of your employees have to work there. You have to have other financials as well. It's basically there's no real easy way to answer the question for you, Holly. What I would say in this case, in case of a VBOC, because I think your primary concern is SDVOSBs, there are a couple of different categories. These are for what they call set-aside programs. So stuff that's limited to small businesses only, that 23% we talked about, or the subcategory of 5%. Those are set aside for small business. If an agency is doing a set-aside, like the VA is doing a set-aside, you have to be a certified VOSB to bid on it. If another agency is putting on a woman-owned small business profile, you have to be a certified woman-owned small business. If you're not, and somebody challenges you on that, even after you're awarded it, you can lose the award. So you know, I wish I could give you a 10-second thing. If you're basically for Holly, my suggestion would be, any questions, just reach out to us and we can tell them what they need to do, because it's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah, we definitely all want to stay in touch. Tommy is just passing along compliments. He says this is all very well organized and presented, so that having access for later summaries is fantastic. And then people are asking about slides, so those will all go out. Gina is wondering, who is the Aroostook County PTAC contact?
Dana Delano, and he's on the call. I can see his smiling face right now.
There you go.
In fact, I think most of my crew is on the call here. Let's see.
Yeah, I see a whole bunch of them. Brian keeps disappearing in a snowstorm, which is kind of hilarious to see each time, because it's like, oh no, he got hit by an avalanche. But it's
well, Brian is a 2-year-old. Lucky that's all he's got going on right now. So.
That he has been hit by an avalanche. So there we go. Rick is wondering, what is the dollar amount that would determine when bonding is required?
There isn't a fixed amount, and there's a couple of different kinds of bonding too. There's this performance bond and this bid bond. And a bid bond actually guarantees that you're able to do the work. If you can't, not perform it, but you're actually capable of doing the work. Performance bond is a more traditional bonding, where you actually bid again. There's different thresholds for different entities, so there's not one automatic number. One thing about bonding, if you're fairly small, the SBA does some special bonding programs where they subsidize some of the price of bonding. So that's another opportunity too.
Great. Well, that is all of the questions in the chat. If anybody has any last minute questions, please plug them in. Otherwise, you will receive a follow-up email from me later on with a link to this recording and the slides. I don't think that there were any other resources that seems like your slides has all of the contact information and links inside. So that's all set. We will also try and share more of their events on our social media pages. So definitely circle back to both the SBDC and PTAC's event pages periodically to see what the offerings are. Again, we are both zero cost programs, just here to help in any way possible. So do not feel there's no such thing as a stupid question. There's no such thing as a too small question. Please, please, please reach out for anything that you need.
Folks are awesome.
Lots of thank yous. Yes. Yes, thank you so much, Ken. This was great.
My pleasure.